Pride Nation. We are here with Amery Skinner on our Getting to Know podcast today. We love to get to kind of know our student athletes and coaches. And on this edition of Getting to Know, we are here with a very accomplished women's soccer player. Amery, great to see you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. We're just going to have some fun. As the title of the podcast is called Getting to Know, we're just going to get to know you and just have some fun here. Along with Kendrick Fruits, our assistant SID. So let's get started, Amery. Just talk about just a little bit about, where you grew up and your kind of family life. And I know we were talking a little bit about, that before, we got on here, but I think it's super interesting, kind of your story. But go ahead and just kind of tell us a little bit about your life growing up.
Yeah, so I was actually born in North Carolina, Cary, to be specific. But when I was in elementary school, we moved to Missouri, and I lived there for 3 years. And, played on the soccer teams there, the little rec leagues. And then we ended up moving to Nebraska for a year. And, that was an interesting experience. They only had one soccer team, and I was the only girl in there. So that was fun, And then we ended up moving back to North Carolina, and we've lived here ever since. A little bit about my family. I have 3 other siblings. I'm the third. I have a younger brother, 2 older sisters. And both my parents played collegiate sports. They actually played at a team in our conference, Methodist University. And my dad played baseball there. He was a pitcher. And my mom, she did dance at Methodist. So they met there. And then they had all 4 of us. My older sister played volleyball at William Peace. And then my other sister actually played at Greensboro College. She played soccer here. So that's kind of, how I came here, but we'll talk about that later. And then my younger brother, he actually recently committed to play baseball at Oklahoma Christian University, and he'll be a pitcher as well. So we're all kind of collegiate athletes. It's kind of been like the big thing in our family. We love sports. I grew up watching baseball like my whole life. I could, tell you a lot about it. So that's been a big thing, sports in our life. And, I love it. I want to continue, to stay involved with it after, I graduate. So, yeah.
Following up on that real quick, talk about being homeschooled. What was that like, growing up, especially playing sports, kind of moving around to different areas? What was that like? And how have you kind of compared that with maybe some other, friends that you have who weren't homeschooled and kind of did the more traditional route?
Yeah. So, I never thought differently about homeschooling. I always thought it was great. There's some people that are like, I don't want to be homeschooled. Like, I want to be in public school or whatever, just for like the social aspect of it. But, I started working when I was 14 and a half, I would work in the mornings, then come home, do my homework or whatever, and then I would go to practice. So I feel like I was able to get like a head start over everyone else, and I felt really prepared. I had seen my 2 older sisters go through it, being homeschooled and stuff. So I always thought it was great, like flexibility wise. I was able to like practice on my own, like in the mornings, like just I felt like more freedom to do stuff, but also always staying on top of like academics and stuff, and being able to take college classes from like an early age. So, and with moving like Missouri, Nebraska, never, had to go through getting pulled out of different public schools and, all that back and forth. So, it was always great. My mom, she was the best teacher, and my dad, he always helped me with my math because I'm not a math person, but I've loved it. Yeah, I've loved it, and I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Well, you talked a little bit about all the sports that you followed growing up, and that your family has played. Obviously, a very talented and athletic family. You mentioned that you played soccer from a young age. Was it always soccer for you, or were you considering some others? Did you dabble in any others? Or
so I started playing soccer when I was 4. And my sister played soccer too, and she was 2 years older than me. So I was like, oh, I want to try this out. Like, it looks fun. But I did play some other sports along the way. I always continued to play soccer, but I did add in softball for a year. Wasn't a huge fan of it after I saw my sister get hit in the face with a ball. So I was like, not for me. I think my dad wanted me to try out softball, just because he was a baseball player, but didn't love it. And then I did cheerleading because, my mom did cheerleading and dancing and stuff. And I did gymnastics and dance because my mom had taught those. So, I feel like as a big family, you kind of had to like pick a sport, not like, when you started getting more like serious, especially like when you start getting into like club sports, because the prices get, that's the whole nother story. Those are super expensive, but, and I just fell in love with soccer. Like I knew it was something that I wanted to do and like wanted to keep doing. And, so yeah, me and my sister found a club, Wake FC in the Holly Springs, North like area. And so, we just fell in love with it and kept doing it. So yeah.
Awesome. So a couple of it's kind of two questions in one. We talked a little bit, before about kind of growing up, and of course, you just mentioned some of the sports that you played. Tell us a little bit about as you got to high school age. What kind of soccer did you play? Whether it was club or for a homeschool team. Tell us a little bit about your high school career, and then kind of what the recruiting process was, because we'll get into this too. Is because you originally went to Catawba College, which is in Salisbury. So can you tell us a little bit about your high school career from a soccer standpoint, and then how the recruiting process was? Because, like you said, you were homeschooled. So again, it's not necessarily the traditional. I went to X high school, and got recruited from that high school. So how did all that work?
Yeah, so freshman year in high school, I more so focused on club soccer just because it was kind of like year round. And then sophomore year, I played for a homeschool team, and we had a lot of homeschool girls, but also like a lot of girls from like private schools played with us. And we actually did play against, we pretty much played against private schools, like other private schools. So that was super, super fun. And my sister played with me. I would have loved to play with her at the collegiate level because we had a lot of great assists back and forth of each other.
What's the age gap?
We're 2 years, 2 years apart. Me and my siblings are all 2 years apart.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're all pretty close. And then like sophomore year, I started playing both. I continued to play with the homeschool team and my club team. And so that was super great. My homeschool coach, I still played for her quite a bit. She coached my WPSL team that I played with over the summer, and that huge credit to them because that helped me get ready for college soccer. Because again, WPSL is a bunch of college girls coming together, and that ranges from like D1 girls to like JUCO girls. So it was always great to play with them. And then a little bit about the recruitment process. Sophomore year, that's when I started, getting really serious about it and reaching out to coaches, going to ID camps. I never really went to an ID camp that was like at one school for one coach. I pretty much always went to camps that had multiple coaches there, just so I could get seen by other people. And sophomore year, I started getting, emails from other coaches wanting me to, come tour their school and stuff like that. And I had a few offers from some schools in Florida, one in Alabama, and then a few in North Carolina. So, then I ended up going to a camp at Catawba and fell in love with the campus. Coach offered me, so I accepted it, and that's when I kind of knew. So I was already committed going into my junior year, so that stress was kind of taken off, So
Yeah.
As a follow-up to that, coming from the homeschool background, was it, do you think, more difficult, or were there some challenges to trying to make sure you were seen, or do you think that you were able to just kind of say, hey, look, this is what I can do, and make people take a look at you?
I mean, I never really felt like there was anything different about it. Honestly, I think I had more time to, set aside time to reach out to coaches and make sure that like I knew where I wanted to go. And, talking to some of my girls on like the club team when we were all kind of going through the same process, they felt like stressed, like they didn't have time to reach out to all those coaches. So, honestly, I think it was great for me. And, I wouldn't really change anything about it. So
So after a couple years at Catawba, you decided to transfer here to Greensboro College. It's really unique because, you know, your sister played here as well. And then, you kind of talk about not only that connection, but, just how you connected with Coach Johnston as well. So talk about what that was like coming here to Greensboro and, just kind of tell us, the backstory to that and, that connection with your sister and, kind of how that played out.
Yeah, so kind of made the decision that I wanted to transfer like that spring of, my sophomore year. And so, I had always known about Greensboro and I've gone to games because my sister played here. And I knew already a little bit about, Coach Johnson. And that connection, I don't know, it was a pretty easy transition just because I talked to my sister a little bit about like, if I decided to transfer there, like, would it be all right? Because I mean, again, I couldn't talk to Coach Johnson yet. So I think he was super excited, to have me. So, and it was closer to home, So honestly, I wanted a smaller environment. I wanted, a team where I feel like I could, make an impact instantly. And, Greensboro was the school for that. And I already, I had a lot of family members that played here. Again, my sister, my brother-in-law, he played lacrosse here. And then my other brother-in-law played baseball here. I think there's a award named after him, actually. So he was kind of a legend.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you can find him on the website all over the place. But already, I've heard great things about the school and, smaller class sizes I was super excited about. And I really just wanted to focus, on my academics and, on soccer for, the 2 years that I was here. So it's been great experience. Yeah.
One follow-up to that too. Obviously, Catawba's Division 2, Greensboro's Division 3. What did you find that you enjoyed about, like, that transition? Because there's a few differences from a rule standpoint and kinda, in season and off season. So, what did you find not only from a, smaller campus and, making an immediate impact, but what did you find here at Greensboro that you really enjoyed that was a little bit different than a Division 2 school?
Yeah, so one of the big things that I can think of, just like the top of my head, is here at like a smaller like Division 3 school, I mean you really feel like appreciated. Like you don't go unnoticed. Whereas like a bigger school, you kind of are like in the shadows. So I just really felt like I was a person, and they really cared about you not only as like an athlete, but as an individual as well. And so that was one of the things that like led me here, honestly. And hearing about the experience that my siblings or my sister had and like my other family members, like I wanted that same feeling too. Like I wanted to feel appreciated at times. Because I mean that's what every collegiate athlete wants. And so yeah, I'm really glad that I came here. So yeah.
I want to know what the USA South trash talk is like in your house with some family members going here and some going elsewhere. How does that go down?
You know, it's been funny conversations. Our dinner table talks are quite interesting. But my dad always talks about. He's like, well, I'm the only one that won a national championship. I was like, all right, Dad, come on. But yeah, it is kind of funny because we all, there's 3 schools in the USA South Conference that we went to, so it is kind of funny to talk about all of those. But again, we've all had great experiences. It's a great conference. It really is. So can't complain. Yeah.
Absolutely. Kinda going off on that side a little bit, with, your family members all being kinda USA South family members. For you, what's that experience been like within the USA South? You played in the SAC at Catawba. Um, there's other competitive Division 3 conferences, but what was your experience like, from a competition standpoint in the USA South?
I mean, this conference has some good teams. They really do. I mean, just beginning of our season talking about how like you know, you can't look at one team and be like, "Oh, they're not going to be that good. Like we can take this game easy." You can't because every team's going to show up and they want to win. So, I mean, huge credit to them because I think that they have really built up the conference. And even like watching my sister when she was a freshman play, the conference has really built up, and I think they're going to continue to do that. And I'm even excited about next year's team, for the fall 2025 that Greensboro is bringing in. They have some good recruits, so I'm excited to see how that team does. And hopefully, they can make it further than we did, because that's the goal, right? You want to try and leave the program better than you found it. But I think that the team coming in, is going to leave it better than they found it too. So, yeah.
Looking at your time here in Greensboro, one of the things that when we talked to Coach Johnston, he talked about your leadership, and that was a big thing that he wanted to make sure that he praised you for. And tell us a little bit about kind of where that came from. Where did you learn your leadership skills? Where did you assume your leadership skills? Was some of that growing up being homeschooled and kind of setting your own practice and routine and that sort of thing? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I feel like, having parents that were also leaders on, their teams, or I've always had like great role models. And I think that's where that came from as well. And all of my siblings, were leaders on their team too. So it was almost like the expectation, but like, I wasn't ever like, I don't want to do that. It was always something that like, I wanted to be a part of, and it's just like a determination kind of thing. Like, I always wanted to be like the workhorse, vocal, so I think that's, where that comes from, and just like that passion, but so yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I want to kind of piggyback off of that. Do you think a lot of your leadership and also your play style, because when we watch you play, you don't have to watch the game very long, and you can say that's the hardest playing player right there. Yeah, it's obvious. Not that nobody else is playing hard, but
Yeah.
you can tell like you're giving 110% effort every second of the game, no matter what the score is, no matter what the situation is. Does that come from your family? Does that come from your dad being a collegiate athlete, your older siblings, and obviously your younger brother now? Like, does a lot of that come from your family background?
100%. We always push each other to be the best that we can be. And, after the games, we'll talk about, mistakes that happen. And we're just very, very competitive. We always, even if we're playing a card game, like it could get heated. So definitely that's where that comes from. Yeah. And, there's like this level of competition because we were all collegiate athletes. So like there's already, that drive there. So, like, who's going to be the best, who's going to break this record or get this award. So there's always that competition right there. So 100% that's where that comes from.
Awesome.
So you talk about getting awards. You sure have ended up with quite a few of your own, especially this past year, and being named USA South Player of the Year this year, first team all conference. You've had second and third team all region. I could go on and on. Just, what are you the most proud of out of all the accolades, all the awards, everything? What, when you talk about, leaving a legacy somewhere, what do you look back at and say, I'm proud of that?
The accomplishments are great, but just even, being able to play at the college level, like that's something that I'm super proud of. If I could go back and tell 10-year-old me, that I would be able to play college soccer, and all the hard work that I did, would get me to this point, I would tell her to keep working, that it's going to come. And so honestly, I'm just proud, I'm doing it for my why. And, I'm proud of, the stuff that I've accomplished, but, just being able to play at the college level is something, that's super cool. A lot of girls don't get to do that. And so, just being able to play here and, hopefully I've left something here that girls, want to be able to, I want to do that. I want to accomplish that too. So, that's just kind of the goal that I had here. Yeah.
To follow up with that, it's not a award necessarily, but it's clear that this campus and this team has a very special place in your heart, obviously. And how cool was it your last game here? You hosted the playoff game and you were able to pick up a hat trick in your final home game of your career.
Yeah, that was probably one of the top moments for sure. I knew that was going to be my last game on Pride Field. And so I wanted to, number one, get the win, but like, how can I make it, memorable, So that was definitely a good way to go out on Pride Field. My family were super pumped about that. And there's just like a lot of emotions, because last home game ever, so I was super excited to go out that way.
Now did you have a hat trick at Catawba too?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've had two hat tricks in.
Collegiate hat tricks. Yeah.
How many did you have in high school? A lot?
Quite a few. I don't even want to go into the stats of that, but yeah.
How many did you have in your backyard growing up?
Yeah.
100,000.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, leaving a legacy like you've left, there's not a ton of athletes that can do that no matter what level. I think you look at Greensboro, even just like right now, like there's been a few in the past, obviously, that have left lasting legacies. But I think like if you're looking at who are the athletes that I think every single person is going to remember, not just because of their accomplishments. Like there's been a lot of athletes that have done a lot of great things, whether it's here at Greensboro or other schools, but who they were as a person and a leader and with the mark that they left, I think you're going to be right there at the top of that list for Greensboro College. I think you look at someone like Josh Wilson, who is very similar in that fashion. There's a select few athletes at every school that can leave that legacy, and I think the impressive part for yours is that you've only done it in 2 years. Coming here and doing everything that you've done, on the field and as a leader of the program. I think that's something that impresses a lot of people. I don't know if you know that because I know you're really humble, and I think from the outside looking in, like you're somebody that you would want a child or a prospective college athlete to emulate. So I hope you know that.
I appreciate it.
Because that's, I mean, I've talked to Coach Mike, I don't know how many times, and he just raves about who you are as a person. The stats are awesome. Like, yeah, we could rave about that too. But I think the leadership and the person that you are, I think, has been the most impressive thing.
Yeah.
So I hope that's something.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, Coach Mike, he's always been, you're a person first before you're a player. And he's big on like building your character and stuff before, the other sport related stuff. But, huge credit to him because that's his culture here. And I think that's so great. And I think, every team should have that standard, person first. And then another like huge credit to my parents too, because, you can be a great athlete, but, if you're not a great person, then, who cares?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I'm totally with you. What about Coach Mike? The culture that he's kind of set. He's only been here a few years, but I think just from what I've heard, the culture really changed when he got here. What did you learn from your sister when you first got here or before you got here? And then what have you learned, in your 2 years here that, about Coach Johnston and the culture that he's kind of set here?
Yeah. So, each coach is going to have their different standards and, their different standards for like how the culture is going to be. And, hearing about like my sister's past, like obviously it was great for her. They did some good things. They won a conference championship, when my sister was here. So, and then they had a few coaching changes. And so just looking at it now, I think Coach Mike has like drastically improved the program. And, I think it's going to continue growing just because, his recruiting style, he always looks at, players' personalities, if they're going to mesh, before their, skills. But it's just been super great and like refreshing to be a part of like a group that all wants to work together and, a group that meshes as well. Each team has, their problems, but the fact that we're able to overcome those and, one of those problems being an 0-6 record at start, but if you look at it now, like we drastically improved and like we all came together one day and we're like, this is what we need to do to get to where we want to. And so, just working together and Coach Mike always, supporting us and every day showing up ready to work. So yeah, it's been great.
You mentioned that 0-6 start. I was actually about to ask you about that.
Same here. I was about to ask the same thing.
It's one thing to say, hey, this is what we need to do, but, it takes action on top of that. So what was the moment that flipped the switch for you guys? Because, when you look at that up to that point in the season, you guys couldn't buy a win. And then you go on a big run and ends up all that momentum ending up hosting a game in the tournament. What was the moment that flipped the switch for you guys?
I remember it like it was yesterday. We had actually traveled to South Carolina to play against Bob Jones. We lost that game. I think it was 2-1. And then we traveled to Alabama. And so me and Coach Mike and a few girls on the leadership team were sitting in the hotel lobby. We were 0-5 at that point, or 0-6 at that point, and we were about to play Huntington the next day. And, we just kind of sat there for a second, and we were like, all right, this is going to be like where we flip, the switch. This is where, we're going to get a win. Like, he just told us, stay positive, keep working, try and always raise the level, do what you can do on the field, and, hopefully the others follow. And so that game was a very rainy game. I mean, we were in a rain delay for a bit, but after we got that win, it was just so refreshing. Like, I don't know, like, it was just so excited. I can tell the other girls that they were super excited just to get finally a win, on the board. And then after that, it's all history. We had a winning streak, and I mean, it was great. I think that really, that night in Alabama where we were just talking, gathering our thoughts about what we needed to do, that really flipped the switch for the season.
Awesome. I think this year just is an incredible example of what good leadership can do, right? Because you battle through adversity. You guys had, multiple injuries as well early in the year. And then you flip it. I think you see a lot of teams that have, maybe average or below average leadership. They start 0-6 and it kind of falls apart. And you guys end up, with 11 wins after starting 0-6. Like that's crazy.
I feel it can either go, one or two ways.
Yeah.
You can just be like, all right, we're done with this. We're 0-6. Like, there's nothing we can change. Or, you can continue to keep working and show up every day at practice and giving 110%, and, good things can happen. You can get 11 wins on the season. So
Awesome. So let's flip it a little bit back to kind of what you're planning to do. You're a senior, and so you'll be graduating soon. Crazy, right?
crazy.
What are you getting your degree in, and what are you thinking about doing after graduation?
Yeah, so I'm majoring in exercise and sports studies, and I'll have a minor in coaching. I've always loved, obviously, like, I have a big sports background, and so I want to continue to stay in sports. But I also love, like, the strength and conditioning side of it. And, I've been talking to Coach Mike a lot, and, like, I love what he does too. He does the strength and conditioning side of it and also coaches at the collegiate level. So, I would love to do that, to continue to coach and, to just be involved in the sport, because it's done a lot for me, and, it's been a big part of my life, for the past 17 years I've been playing the sport. So just to be able to help girls play, and continue to play and, like, enjoy the game. I would love to be able to help with that, and also, work with the strength and conditioning side of it to keep athletes strong and healthy and keep them on the field.
What would your message be to this new class of Greensboro soccer players? You talked about how you thought there was a strong class coming in, and as you're exiting the program and new players coming in, what message would you leave for them?
I would just say, that if you show up every day, willing to give 110%, effort, then you can accomplish big things. Because I think that sometimes, especially for me as a freshman, I was scared. It's intimidating to come in freshman year with, seniors who have, they've played for a while, and it can be intimidating. But if you're just willing to work, and to get better every day, then I think you can go you can go as far as you want, so.
What has been like outside of soccer? What's been one or two of your favorite memories that you've had at Greensboro, whether it's
This podcast.
Yeah, this podcast. Wow, this is the best thing she's ever done. What memories outside of this podcast have you, will you think about, years down the road?
So, some stuff outside of soccer, obviously, like I've enjoyed getting to know the girls. And even when I came in for the fall 2023, we helped the freshmen move in. And so I had never been a part of a team that did that, so that was really great just to like go in and help the freshmen move in. I mean, it's something so small, but like it really does mean a lot. I wish my freshman year I had someone helping me move in. Like, the team. Obviously I had my parents, but like just having the team like support you and move your stuff in. I mean, it's so simple, but like it goes a long way. And team bonding, we played putt-putt. I beat our assistant coach. I would just like to point that out.
Would that be Jake?
It would be.
Got to give Jake a shout out.
Yeah, I beat him in putt-putt. So that was super exciting. Just like the little stuff, the team bondings, the dinners that we do at the girls' apartments. I mean, all of that little stuff, it does mean a lot. And I'll remember those memories that we made. And even like senior night, that was a big one for me. Again, I mentioned that, or I don't know if I mentioned this, but my parents live in Oklahoma. And so I didn't know if they were going to be able to make it. My mom actually came to like live with us for 9 weeks to watch me play my senior season. So that was really like a big memory that I'll remember forever. And then senior day, I didn't think my dad was going to be able to come because of work, and he flew in and surprised me. So that was just super exciting. It's something that I'll remember forever because, I wanted them there because they've been a part of the journey all this time, and they're like a big reason that I played in college. So that's something that I'll remember forever.
Awesome. Kendrick, you got anything else?
No, it's been a pleasure. I've not been here. Obviously, none of us have been here that long in the grand scheme of things, but, just getting to watch you from up on the press box and getting to talk to you, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Getting to Know with Amery Skinner. Be sure to follow us on X and on Instagram, and go to GreensboroCollegeSports.com for all of your Greensboro athletics news and information.